Well, we got the chess book style pieces here because today we're going to be doing an endgame lesson. And we're going to talk about some other things about the endgame. In my other endgame video, I talked about the two most important things for low level players to learn in the endgame, and that's the rook checkmate and how to promote with just a pawn. Uh, and today we're going to be talking about two more endgame lessons. The first of which is that if you have mate in one, you need to play it, right? I mean, this is just, you need to check this. White has 3 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock, okay? You need to check this rook to a6 move and see if it is indeed checkmate, which by the way it is, because the king covers the pawn and this square, and the pawn covers the rook, and the rook covers these squares. That is the literal definition of checkmate, okay? Instead, white takes a pawn, still completely winning, and after some more trades and some more blunders, we have this position, right? We're going to talk about some rook endgame stuff and some other principles in other videos, but for the purposes of avoiding too much information saturation, right? We're just going to talk about this one concept here in the endgame, and that is in a critical position like this, right? And this is a critical position because it basically determines how the rest of the entire endgame is going to go. And in fact, if you look at the engine lines over here, two moves win for white. The rest don't. The rest are a forced draw. So, in a critical position like this, you need to take time to consider moves. The good thing about the endgame is there's less moves you need to consider, right? But that means you need to calculate them in a much higher depth in your head so you can formulate an accurate plan and figure out how you're going to proceed. So one thing you could do is figure out the win conditions for each side. So white's win condition is to promote this pawn or this pawn. Black's win condition is to promote this pawn, and the draw condition is to only have one of these two pawns left at the end of the game, because I mean that's basically a guaranteed draw unless the other side's king is just really far away from the action. Okay, so now we've established that, right? White to move and win the game. So, excuse me. So let's say you're in this position as white, okay? You need to figure out, how am I going to get this pawn promoted? Is it even possible? Well, uh, if you push the pawn up, the king just takes it, right? So you have to move this king up first, okay? If you move this king up first, it cuts the black king off from here and here. So black's basically only good move is to play this. And so now we need to actually go through this line and calculate it, okay? King to c5, pawn goes up. Okay, now this pawn can move up. Pawn to b6, pawn moves up, pawn moves up, pawn moves up. Get a queen. Okay, and black can also get a queen, but then moving the queen that you just got back here would be checkmate, right? That is a win for white. Okay, we calculated a win. Very good. Now, let's say black also makes that calculation after you play king c5. And let's say, okay, king c5, king can't move here, here, but they're going to move this pawn up. And when you move pawn to b6, let me just redo these arrows here, so get rid of the highlighted squares. Then black is going to go king to a6, right? So everything's just been moved up one square, as you can see by the arrows. The black pawn's gotten one square closer. All these three pieces have gotten one square closer. Well, that is the exact same situation as before. Everything is one square closer and white still has the move, right? So you just do the exact same thing. You go king to c6 now, and then black cannot move to these two squares because the pawn and the king cut those off, so black would move here. And then if the pawn moves up and black moves here, then you just push the king to c7 here. Pawn moves up, and that's a queen with check. So either way, white wins, all right? Either way, there's nothing black can do to stop this. So boom, king to c5, and the computer says point +8, but it's literally like mate if you look over here. I don't like. I know it uses two separate engines, two separate depths between this and this, so sometimes it can get a little weird. But okay, that is the winning strategy. That is what you need to calculate at this position. You can be like, okay, how do I win this? White had 3 minutes here. You need to calculate this. All right. Instead, white is like, oh, I'm going to take black's pawns and come back to it later. That is a draw, okay? And it's a draw for the reason I'm going to show you. Now, every move in this sequence is pretty much forced, okay? Um, pretty much forced, right? All these pawns get traded, but as I said before, like just having a pawn here on the sides of the board, these are called rook's pawns because they start where the rook is, and like little side information, if you ever seen Queen's Gambit and they're like pawn to king 4 or whatever, right? That would be putting a pawn here because the king starts on this square and this is a fourth up, and then black's pawn to king 4 would be this. It would be like pawn to, oops, so I started the game, pawn to king 4, pawn to king 4, whatever. So this would be like a king's pawn. And this would be a bishop's pawn. And this would be a knight's pawn. Oops, and this would be a knight's pawn. And this would be a rook's pawn, right? Rook's pawn, really easy to draw with. Okay? And if the defending king gets in the corner, guaranteed draw. But if the attacking king gets stuck in the corner, which we're about to see in this game, also guaranteed draw. Because after white takes this pawn right here, black can just go here, and it's gonna be pretty. And like white tries to do some maneuvering here, but black can just keep moving up and down. And now this is actually stalemate. The king has no escape. Now let's say instead of white putting their king in the corner, white goes here to g6, black goes here to g7, and then okay, you do the check, boom here, and then move here, it's stalemate. So really, really, really easy to draw for a rook's pawn. So bottom line is, if you're at a position like this where you play a move and every other move on the board is basically forced, you need to calculate as deep in that line as possible. Draw arrows, okay? You don't have to be like Karu Nakamura and draw 27 arrows, but you have to figure out the entire line. Is this a win? Is this a draw? Okay? Right? And and also you need to know your endgames, that just having the rook's pawns left is just a draw. So if there's some way you can, and the computer also says pawn to d5 is a win. If there's some way you can get rid of this pawn and keep this pawn, then it's a win too. But uh, but you just need to look at this pawn right here and how to get that through with this king to c5 move, and that is a guaranteed win. We just calculated that. So anyway, I hope you learned something. Leave any suggestions in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.